Okay, so I'm going to post a version of this video on my Patreon, which you should go check out, and if you're able to support me on Patreon. But this video is going to be about my little epiphany about a particular word. I usually don't like playing semantics because I know that words, languages, they do evolve, right? They do have a meaning, words have a meaning, okay, but it changes with the cultural shifts, with socioeconomic shifts, just like everything else, right? But the word that I actually never truly understood, and lately in my own meditative practices, I have been reflecting upon, is the word smирение in Russian, which literally translates as coming to peace with something. And I was trying to find an equivalent in English, and all the words that I'm familiar with and that the dictionaries kept on suggesting were words like humility, right? Being humble, submission. The words that I know pretty well, having had quite some contacts in the past with all kinds of Christian communities and sects. And I am telling you that this is not what they mean, right? When they talk about submission, when they talk about humility, they do not mean coming to peace with. They mean the master-slave dichotomy. They mean here is the construct of God that we have come up with due to white supremacy. Of course, they're not going to admit that. Due to the history of the development of capitalism. And this is the construct that we are imposing onto you. This is the ideological imperative we are imposing onto you, and you must submit to it. You have to follow it because this is what we deem to be right. Now, what I have come across in my own musings was that the word смирение, or coming to peace with, is a process that is absolutely necessary and that is absolutely intertwined with the understanding and the embodiment of dialectical materialism. When you realize that so many factors, so many things outside of you are out of your control, and even many things inside of you are out of your control, this is when you realize that you have to learn to come to peace with certain things, and you have to let go of your desire to control. Now, this is where many people, especially people who study communism and Marxism very seriously, this is where they may have a little bit of a struggle, right? Because we know that we're supposed to overcome certain contradictions, right? And if we do not assert our free will, the one that we do possess a certain extent of a free will, then we're basically just playing into the hands of the bourgeoisie, right? We're just supporting the status quo, and this all starts sounding like some kind of esoteric mishmash, right? But what I'm advocating for is not it. What I'm advocating for is seeing the unity aspect of the struggle and unity of the opposites doctrine, which we all have to agree is one of the most fundamental laws of the universe ever found by man. And no, Marx and Engels were not the first people to start talking about this, okay? People in the past talked about this too, even if they used a little bit of a different, well, a lot of a different language, obviously, but they still talked about the same kind of an idea of unity. A lot of cultural symbolism from the East actually resembles this or tries to communicate this, and I talked about the different types of symbolism you can look into. But the unity aspect is coming to peace with. It doesn't mean that the struggle aspect is no longer there. When you try to overcome a certain contradiction, be it your own internal one or whether you see it as a pattern outside of yourself, you, by struggling with it, you will overcome it. But the aspect of that initial contradiction, or the aspects of the truth, the kernels of the truth of those two initial theses and antitheses, they're going to remain. You are going to find their unity. And this is what's going to be the next stage. This is what the overcoming is. It is becoming a newer version, right? It is becoming the next iteration of the thing. Just like socialism and communism arose out of capitalism, together with capitalism, they were conceived. In capitalism, there is already that kernel of truth of socialism and communism. so is in any other contradiction, so is in any other truth. There is already a kernel of truth that has to remain, that has to evolve. I mean, evolve is not the best word. Probably develop is a better word here, but it's got to emerge, right? It's got to appear, and it may appear seemingly out of nowhere, but when you observe the patterns long enough, you will see, no, there were all kinds of predisposition. There were all kinds of preconditions that led to these phenomena to occur. So when you realize this on a personal level, coming to peace with something does not mean giving up, and it does not mean following blindly or succumbing to the circumstances or being, sheeple and just submitting yourself to the will of the fate. Absolutely not. When you come to peace with lots of things, and I'm not going to give you any concrete examples right now because we all have a ton of pain right now. I'm sure everybody has so much nowadays in their life to overcome, be it personal or international, global, etc. There's so many things to grieve, to be mad about, to be sad about, to be unhappy about, etc., that I know everyone's going to be able to come up with their own example. But once you face that contradiction, remembering that even in that conflict that you're experiencing right now, there is already a kernel of truth that you will have to unearth in order to resolve that contradiction. And in order to resolve that contradiction, you will need to see the struggle of the kernel of truth, let's call it A, and the kernel of truth, let's call it B, right? And when you see them struggling, you will also need to start seeing their unity, that all of a sudden A is becoming B, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter. B is becoming an A, but they're not an A and a B anymore. They're not some separate entities. Now all of a sudden they're an AB or BA. Together they form that unity, which is the next level of the truth. And once you start getting used to this process, you will have a hard time living in a binary world, in a world where there is a black and evil, negativity, whatever, and there is this light, good, etc. You will see them in their struggle, in their opposition, and you will see them in their unity, because without light, there won't be darkness. Without darkness, there won't be light. And that doesn't justify evil, right? It doesn't justify atrocities or violence, but it helps us understand the patterns of how certain aspects may become exaggerated, may become exacerbated. So the contradictions of capitalism are not resolved without any kind of suffering, let's put it this way, right? So without trying to resolve capitalism, we're suffering under the conditions that are necessary for the creations of the conditions of production. If we struggle against capitalism in any way or form, we're going to suffer. It's either or. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. But once we start seeing that it is not us trying to overcome the other just for the sake of being the winner, when we see that this is a process that hasn't started yesterday or 400 years ago or 4,000 years ago, this is a process that started who knows when. It started a very, very long time ago. It emerged before us humans even emerged. It is the law of the universe. It is not a human law. We humans can only see it, can only discover it for ourselves and explain it with our little futile words. But it is the law of the universe that will keep on unfolding. The spiral will keep on moving. You cannot stop it from moving. You cannot will it to stop moving. It's going to continue unfolding as it is supposed to. And what we can do is we can see the patterns and we can become active agents. And of course, in the video that I suggested on Patreon, I do touch upon some of this. I am a little bit more direct. If you're interested, you can check it out. Do let me know if this little video made sense. But I think it is absolutely essential we start applying this model to our day-to-day lives, and we start coming to peace with the things we cannot control. We cannot run out into the streets and demand our government stops all the evil and atrocities right now for good, and then everything's going to be resolved. That's just not going to happen. We cannot just will a party into existence. We cannot will a healthy organization into existence. We have to come to peace with that. We have to come to peace with the fact that all of these things are going to take time, and the change has to appear not just externally but internally as well. We have to emerge as newer, less contradictory, less fragmented people in order to be able to reconnect with the rest of the substance. First of all, we have to connect with other humans, and then later maybe we'll be able to connect to other species. Hopefully we'll be able to do that too. But at this point of history, we have to be humbled. I know the word has a lot of religious connotation to it, but still, we have to have that understanding that by our willpower alone, we're not going to be able to gain the results. And we have to come to peace with that. We have to realize that, yes, most likely in my lifetime, I'm not going to see a change, a major positive change. I'm probably going to continue seeing an atrocity after atrocity, human loss that is absolutely unnecessary, species lost, natural habitat loss that is absolutely devastating, and again, absolutely possible to avoid. But this is not something I can control. What I can control is myself and my immediate surroundings, and I have to connect and organize together with the like-minded people who I trust. I have to struggle with them and find unity with them too. And slowly but steadily, we're all going to gather into that flood that is going to wash off the shame of capitalism off the face of the earth. My heart lives to see this day. I'm only alive by this hope alone. So hopefully it all made sense. Consider supporting me on Patreon. Do take care of yourself and your community first. I hope you have a great day today. Subscribe to me on all the social medias, even though I don't do much there. And I'll talk to you sometime later.